Hey guys, Dekison here. Today I'll be doing my Tirisfal survival guide. The survival guide series is a series in which I cover the background lore and the quests within each of the zones within Classic WoW. I am doing this series because I feel like a lot of the players in the game, they don't pay much attention to the quest text or even read it. I personally don't even read it myself. A lot of the research I've been doing has been recent, and I find it actually pretty interesting in that there's a lot more behind each of the quests than you think. And I would like to share that knowledge with you guys. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, leave a like and a comment, and let me know on some feedback on what you thought and if I missed anything. If we're to understand the story of Tirisfal, we have to go back to a time when the Titan Keepers still presided over Azeroth. These Titan Keepers, or the ones we will be talking about today, are Tyr, Loken, Arcades, and Iron Aya. One of the Titan Keepers, Loken, has been driven mad by the old god Yogg-Saron, and is in possession of this item called the Discs of Norgannon. The Discs of Norgannon are this item that has been made by Loken and Mimiron themselves to record everything that happens in Azeroth while the Pantheon are gone. The Pantheon one day were supposed to return and would look over all the things that happened in the world and decided Azeroth's fate, but that didn't happen. So, instead, Loken has a hold of the discs, and since he's been driven mad, the other three Titan Keepers decide to instead steal the discs, and because this item records everything that has gone on since the very beginning, they can look back over the information within these discs and basically decide a plan as to how to deal with Loken, since he's very powerful and he is also insane, basically. So, in the meantime, or while they're doing that, they also take with them several of the other races that preside in the Storm Peaks. By the way, Loken himself is in the Storm Peaks, and a lot of the metallic races that you see in Ulduar were the only races to exist back then. The Mechanomes and the Earthen and the Stone Vrykul. All of those were the only races that used to exist. So, in order to lead them from safety, and while stealing the Discs of Norgannon, the three other Titan Keepers, Tyr, Arcades, and Iron Aya, all lead these metallic races away from Loken to safety. And when Loken finds out, he is furious. So furious, in fact, that he calls upon the old gods, or the aid of the old gods, to send 2 Cathraxi to attack them, the other 3 Titan Keepers. And when this happens, they catch wind of this. They see it coming. So they devise a plan. Tyr will stay behind and fight these 2 Cathraxi while the other 2 Titan Keepers look over the Disc of Norgannon to see a way to defeat Loken and lead the other races to safety. So that's basically what happens. Tyr himself, though, he sacrifices himself, and he basically explodes the surrounding area. It's cataclysmic, and it wipes out one of the Cathraxi instantly, while sending the other one wounded and away and into hiding. So, since that happens, the other 2 Titan Keepers come back, expecting Tyr to be alive, and he's not. They find the body of the Cathraxi and Tyr himself, and they create a burial site. A burial site to which will give the forests of where his death occurred, Tyr's death, its name, Tirisfal, as well as another name, a name as to which some of you may be familiar, a name known as the Silver Hand, since Tyr within one of the battles, has lost his actual arm, he forged a new one called his Great Silver Hand, and it was placed upon his burial site, almost like a gravestone. I have an image popping up right about now that'll show you what exactly I mean, and that's where the Paladin Order, the Silver Hand, came from, or was named after. Now that the origins of Tirisfal are explained, we can go a bit forward in time. A time where the Vrykul are completely flesh-ridden. They're no longer stone. But another degeneracy is occurring. The Vrykul are starting to give birth to these smaller, weaker versions of themselves. These weaker versions of themselves will soon be known as humans. But before we get to that, whenever the leader of the Vrykul, the king, King Yimmeron, catches wind of this, he decides to kill all of them. Basically, as you can imagine, a Viking king believes that these new humans are far too weak and they should just die. Many of the clans actually go along with this, and a lot of human children lose their lives, but not all of them. Some of them decide that they don't think this is right, and they flee from the northern reaches of the world down to Tirisfal Glades, or the area that will be known as it. And that is where the humans got their origin. That's how they ended up there. That's how the kingdoms began to be built, and since the Vrykul were giving birth to these humans, the Vrykul in Lordaeron stopped existing, because all that was left was the humans. With humanity cemented its place in Tirisfal Glades, we can now start where we left off at the beginning of the video. Basically, we're starting at the point where Arthas has finished his descent as a Death Knight, and he has returned to his home, Lordaeron. When he returns to his home, as many of you know, he slays his own father and raises the city along with every living creature in it, himself saying this. And whenever that happens, he continues going. He goes all the way into Quel'Thalas. Now, Quel'Thalas is important because one particular high elf that many of you may know loses her life, Sylvanas Windrunner. Sylvanas Windrunner is raised into undeath as a banshee, and for a while she serves Arthas completely and truly, and she begins to regain some of herself, not physically, just her mind, and she begins to feel these feelings of revenge for him, and she decides, hey, I'm going to break free of the Lich King's control. A strong will. It takes a strong will to do that. But she does it. And she decides to take the undead that Arthas has risen and take some of them, free their minds, and raise somewhat of an army. When she does this, she returns to Lordaeron, or she doesn't return, but many of the undead who used to live there return to Lordaeron, and the place is in ruins, left as it was when the Lich King himself left. But they return to Lordaeron itself, the city, and they take a living not in the city, but in the torture chambers and prison under the city, known as Undercity. As many of you may or may not know, the Undercity always existed. It wasn't made by the Forsaken or Sylvanas. It was always there. It was basically a prison. So they do that, and they also begin to take a home within many of the disrepaired homes within the glade, the forests. That's why I love the zone so much. I love the idea of the Forsaken homes, the homes that still, like, they have a history behind them. Even though they look terrible and a terrible place to live in, they almost have a history behind them when you look at them. So, that out of the way, whenever you begin your journey as a player throughout Azeroth as a Forsaken, you wake up inside this crypt. You climb the stairs of the crypt and you come across this NPC who goes by Undertaker Mordo. And Mordo sends you to Shadow Priest Sarvis. Once you reach Sarvis, he lets you know of the history basically I just explained, but the history and why you're fighting the Scourge. And your first task is to obviously kill some Scourge. You kill some Scourge attacking Death Knell, the town, and kill a whole lot of them. I think about 16 is the quest, like if we're going to get exact with it, it's about 16. And after that, you're sent into Brill. Brill, you come across Coleman Farthing. Coleman, he is a farmhand of a former farmhand of a rather prestigious family. A family in which lived a pretty great life. But this family has a pretty dark history with it too. So, the family I'm referring to is the Agamans. The Agamans are, or the family itself, the members of the family, sorry, the members of the family, they are Nisa, Gregor, which are the mother and the father, and then the two sons, Thurman and Devlin. Yeah, Devlin. So, the two sons, Thurman is known to be tall and gentle, while Devlin is known to be weak and sharp-tongued. This will be important later. So, when the Lich King came to Lordaeron, he basically went through the whole thing, killing everyone and raising everything. Sorry, motorcycle. Killing everyone and raising everything. And he comes across Devlin. Devlin is a very selfish person. He only is interested in saving his own skin. And he basically lets all the Scourge into the Agamen Mills. That's where the whole Agamen family dies. They try their best to defend it. Even Coleman Farthing, the quest giver in this instance, fights with them, and he dies. He loses life. So, whenever that happens, they are raised into undeath, all of them. Even Devlin. Even Devlin was killed. And Devlin was banished out of the mills for his betrayal. And funny enough, his spawn point isn't random. He is purposefully outside of the mills because they wanted to add that little lore bit. That's why he walks around the small hill outside the mills, because he is banished. So, we, the adventurers, are tasked with killing all of them and bringing back the remains, because Coleman, he has no loyalty for them. He believes that, and he's correct, I think, he believes that it was a foolish choice to stay behind and try and defend the farm. So he wants to take revenge because he feels it is the fault of the Agamen family for his death. It has nothing to do with, any freeing. He feels like they should be freed. He just feels this feeling of revenge. So that's what we do. We go back and we return the remains. The next time we deal with the Agamans, it's not actually the Agamans themselves. They're gone. They're dead. We're sent back into the Agamen family crypt, because within the family crypt there is this Captain Darkwool. He is a skeletal soldier, and he is raising many of the ancestors within the family crypt into undeath, and planning to raise an army to use against Brill. So, obviously, we go in there and we kick his ass. And we head back out. And that is pretty much the end of all the Scourge threats within Tirisfal. I mean, there is a small farm outside of Brill where we, you know, grab some putrid claws from some zombies, but I read the quest text for that. That's not enough to worth mentioning. I believe there's another quest, but that's about it. I will be doing a second part covering the Scarlet Crusade within the zone. The reason why I am only focusing on the Scourge quest is because if I went through every single quest, not only would it make no sense because the quests aren't only focused on one plot point, but also many of the quests aren't important enough worth mentioning. So the Scarlet Crusade one is. So in my second part, I will be covering that part of it, and also describing the origins of the Scarlet Crusade. But I hope you liked the video. If you did, leave a like, and please comment to me if there's any feedback you have, because that feedback helps me. I also stream on Twitch 3 to 4 days a week, and about 5 to 6 hours a day. I also post on Twitter several updates on my YouTube videos and also when I'm going to be streaming. So anyways, thank you very much for watching the video,